And we're back.
Okay.
It's been a minute, but telling our story again together.
Continued.
Continuation, yeah.
The continuation of Carlos and Chantel Beyond Marriage.
Yes. And we left off at Signal Hill and just wanted to share a story about Signal Hill because we decided to move there and now it's time to find a house to rent. We were at a hotel and we were doing Epic 30, as you know it now, some of you that follow us. 30 minutes to create an epic life. It's a process. So we actually were doing a little different thing. We had done it was a spiritual thing we wanted to do. We do what's called envisioning. We ask God to give us a vision. And in that, at that time, we were all at the hotel in our room in Signal Hill. And I asked everyone to envision what our new house is going to look like. And I remember Hazel drew a picture and Chantel envisioned what it was going to be. And then we said, okay, we're just going to get in the car and drive. Remember this?
Yeah, so we weren't actually in Signal Hill. We were in Long Beach.
Ah, you're right. This was how the move happened to Signal Hill.
Yeah.
But we were in Long Beach, correct? And at a hotel there. So we had an envision, asked God to show us what our house was supposed to be, where we're supposed to live. And I remember you got a vision of what? The tile. Remember that? I remember you talking all about it.
Yeah, Saltillo tiles on a hillside, and there was a circular room.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of fascinating because then we just said, okay, we're going to get in the car. We're just going to drive. We're going to let God lead us to where our home is. And it was pretty interesting because I remember I was driving and I'm like, we're just going to drive. And so we started driving. We were still in Long Beach. So we didn't actually know where we ended up till later. We were driving. And then I remember you're like, yeah, just keep going this way, keep going this way. And it was definitely like a God thing. We were seeking God to show us and lead us where to go. And I remember we were driving and Chantel's like, turn here. And I turned and she was kind of the guider, if you would. God was guiding us, but through Chantel.
I just felt led, right?
And I remember because I remember going down this one road, like, that was it. You're supposed to turn right there. And I was like, okay. So I turned around and came back and turned on that road. And it was pretty profound because we pull up to this house and you were just convinced. You're like, that's it. That's it. That's the one. That's the one from my vision. You remember that? It was pretty cool because we had a lot of spiritual God moments like that along the way in our journey. We have had a lot of them, but that was pretty significant. And the reason why is because it was crazy to actually see a house that she had in her vision. We'd never seen it before. We actually didn't even know where we were at the time. Turned out we were in Signal Hill. And she was so excited that that was it. She just like goes up to the door, man. You tell the story now.
No, obviously it meant something to you.
It was cool. I think it was cool because she was like super passionate, excited about it. And she was really overwhelmed that it was actually the house from her vision. And then she goes knocking on the door and asks the people, is this place for sale or for rent? And they let us go in. They actually gave us a tour. There was these people coming out the back door, and it was a big house. I can't even remember how big it was. What was it? 10,000 square feet or something like that.
I don't remember.
It was huge. In Signal Hill, California, by the way.
Yeah, so Signal Hill is a city that is actually inside of another city. So Signal Hill is literally a hill within the surrounding area is Long Beach City. So, fun fact.
Yeah, there was a lot of cool things about that because God had showed us that we were going to be a light on a hill. And so we were like, that's so cool.
And the history of Signal Hill goes back to the Native Americans and what they used that area for.
to send signal.
Send signals. Yeah.
And communication. And so, anyways, the house was amazing. We actually got a tour of the house. They were asking if we wanted to rent one room because they were renting it out by the rooms.
Yeah, so it was a Vietnamese family
Yeah.
who literally was like, they had different family members renting rooms, and then they were gonna rent out more rooms and whatnot. So it was a really interesting scenario. But we built relationship, and because that's what we do.
Yeah. And it was cool because we got to see the house. We actually had dinner with them, the family.
Yeah.
And
They invited us for it was one of their holidays,
yeah,
a celebration. So we got to eat, all of this cool food, and it was awesome. It was a great connection. But that's what took us to Signal Hill. We ended up renting down the hill from that. And that began our journey in our what we call our war on debt apartment.
That's right. We rented a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah.
Chantel and I slept in the living room, and the
Yeah,
kids
'cause we
slept
were-
in the bedroom.
We were attending First Steps to Success, and Danny teaches a segment on war on debt, right? So we didn't have any credit card debt at the time, but we definitely understood that, we wanted to create wealth. We wanted to pay cash for everything and not go into credit card debt. And, and so that was a season where it was interesting because we rented this little 1-bedroom. Like Carl said, we had our bed in the living room, our couch in the living room, and then the kids had the bedroom. And we had so many social gatherings there.
We sure
Like
did.
we had a ton. And then we ended up renting just a block over an office space that was far bigger than our apartment was. So it was just a really fascinating season for us, and building business and whatnot.
Which is where we started and birthed
Peculiar
Solutions International Consulting Firm.
Yeah.
And I remember too, because all during our spiritual journey during that time, we actually went to Bethel, Redding, California, and we went into the prayer room there, and that's where it all kind of came to pass. And God showed us that,
we were another vision, like sort of a large global vision.
Yeah.
Was birthed there.
Yeah, we still have pictures to this day of that whole situation, and Peculiar still is one of our parent company under Epic Your Life. But in that little apartment, we had many guests, even though it was 1-bedroom, and that was really where we started doing more of
Shabbat.
We
did potlucks. I was just looking at my Instagram, my old Instagram roll. And I used to post on Friday, potluck at the Compost family. And that was at that little 1-bedroom apartment. And I mean, we would have 20 people there at times. We had a little grass area on the outside, but yeah, we had
It was awesome. It was awesome. And actually 1 month, did we stay 1 month in the upper part? Do you remember that?
I think we were longer in the
maybe
1 or 2 months.
But it was this apartment. We had an upper apartment, and then we ended up moving down to the lower one. That's where we did the Shabbats.
Yeah.
We had the grass yard.
Bigger.
Yeah, it was bigger. Grass yard.
But the craziest thing, and it's so weird that we're talking about that season right now, because we also discovered through some friends a little church that met at a school, in an elementary school, and that church was called The Light. It makes me emotional.
Yeah.
But it was pastored by the most incredible, humble man. I would say one of, if not the only pastor that I have met that truly, genuinely was like 100% a faithful shepherd. Like, he was incredible. His name was David Hino, and we actually lost him last weekend. He died. He was getting older, and he had some health complications and was in the ICU for I think over a month.
Yeah.
And so it's just wild that we're talking about that right now, but he was such a huge part of our journey right now.
Right. Some of the great spiritual greats are passing on and passing the baton, and the one thing that I could say about David Hino, since we're on this topic about David, was just a true man of love.
Yeah.
Next level love and God's love and the power, like supernatural power of God's love and what it can do to transform lives. Um, yeah, he was an awesome guy. He and I had a tradition that I would always take him to sushi on his birthday. It was quite an awesome time. I remember that because he introduced me to a sushi place that had black rice. I'd never had black rice before, but
Yeah, he was amazing. Him and his wife Sharon and
yeah,
their family, and just, he would have gatherings at his home, and he would support us through, in the midst of our business. He was on our
Yep.
board.
Yep.
Just an incredible man. And wow, like I value that time there so deeply that we had with him.
That's right. Super awesome. So that apartment though, that's where it really, really kind of solidified even the process of Epic 30.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we started introducing, not only were we doing the journaling we spoke about in our last video, but we then also started implementing what we now call GWs, gratitudes and worthies.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting because I remember at that table, we also did some cool videos. We'll have to share those. The dance videos. What was that song?
Gangnam Style.
Gangnam Style, Gangnam Style. Yeah, you're right. It was kind of a fad. Everyone would do those videos, and we did one as a family. So, anyways, I remember being there at the table, and we were doing some gratitudes. We'd done the journaling. We started doing gratitudes, and then we started doing some worthies. And I'll never forget because it was really emotional during that time. We did IMs for the first time while we were there. I am worthy.
It was a progression. It was
Yep.
kind of we had came to this revelation of like, it's great to be grateful for others, but like if we're not acknowledging ourselves, and that's our identity journey, right? Recognizing the value of valuing ourselves and being
So
grateful
true.
for the things that we bring to the table in our life. And you know again, honoring God and
Mhm.
ourself and the people around us, and speaking that over, like just verbalizing it is so powerful. And then we exercise that muscle with the different people who would come and stay with us. And
Yep.
because we always had people
And
coming
we
and
had,
visiting.
we did a bunch of research during that time too on the gratitude experiment. And we also were doing calls every weekday morning about shapers, which is part of our content now. We were teaching shapers and
So
hops.
wild.
We were doing hops back then too. We started hops then, which is
The children's version of shapers.
that's right. And so it's awesome because now full circle, we've begun to implement that and use that with some of our clients and their children. So it's super cool to see that now. We were doing, one thing that we did on a pretty regular basis back then was we would go down to Skid Row and do Skid Row cleanup during that time too. And again, down in Skid Row in LA, they have a lot of homeless people. Yeah.
So like a 4-block radius of homeless. I mean, people living on the streets in tents, they did their drugs, they used the bathroom, everything on the
Yep.
streets. And it's a very dangerous place to go. A lot of people go and feed the homeless, they'll go and drop off clothing and whatnot. And we had done a little bit of all of that. And then we found this ministry that we fell in love with. Super sweet guy, started it, and just his heart and passion and consistency every week. He
Yep.
was there with, he had borrowed a shed there, in the neighborhood, and had loaded it up with large trash cans and all of the tools that he needed, reinforced them creatively. He had all of the chemicals to sanitize everything
Yep.
afterwards. And so we started doing that. And it was a really profound experience for us.
It was.
Much more than feeding the homeless and bringing clothes. Ultimately, when you recognize the amount of trash that's down there that doesn't get picked up by your local, trash collectors, You start to recognize like what the need is, right? There's so many shelters, there's so much
Yeah.
food. These guys get fed so much food, and food is not the issue.
Right.
And but the trash was huge, and we would have a lady come in screaming like obscenities, like out of her mind, and then all of a sudden she'd zero in and look directly at you and be like, thank you for cleaning my home. And we had people ask us to use a broom and start helping us with it. We had Hazel, she always had her hand on my back pocket right next to me. We had them protect us when a fight would break out. There was so many different cool experiences that we had.
It was amazing. It really was. And I'm grateful we did that. That was very important to us as a family, to help on Skid Row, cleaning up, feeding the homeless. We did that many, many times, to clothing down out
Mhm.
to the homeless. And yeah, it was really profound for us to do that. That was a great time as a family. And really instilled in us just how important it is to serve and to give and to love on people.
I'll never forget the one time I think we were in Anaheim at a park. Uh, we had a bunch of trailers full of like, it was winter stuff
Yeah.
for the homeless. And, we had just have these lines, and we were dishing out, clothing, sweatshirts, socks, jackets, you name it. And Mateo, we had maybe it was after Christmas or something, because we
Something
had
like
just
that.
gotten back from Mexico, and Mateo had a Mexican poncho on, and we're out there and we're giving stuff away, and all of a sudden Mateo comes up with no jacket, and I was like, where's your jacket, dude? He was like, they ran out and this little kid needed one, and so he just took it off and gave it to him. And I was like, wow, man, it was such a blessing.
Powerful,
Yeah.
powerful. Just loving people well, and even our kids. That was super awesome. That was a really cool experience to see him do that.
Yeah.
And then what else during that time? That would have been right. It was before that time, actually. Were we also going to Mexico by that time? Had we already started going to Mexico?
I don't know.
It would have probably been, well, you said we just came back from Mexico if Mateo had a poncho and
Yeah,
stuff. But
yeah, maybe we have.
so
Yeah.
I think we started about that time to go to Mexico. Now, Chantel told her stories about growing up going to Mexico. Um, and so we made a decision to start going down to Mexico and supporting the orphanages down there. Now, the US, I don't even know, does the US even have orphanages anymore? Or is it more just foster care
Well, they
and
have,
foster homes, like
sure, they have,
homes
I
for,
mean, I guess don't really call them orphanages.
yeah,
That
yeah,
would
in the
be
States,
children's homes.
children's homes. But in
Mhm.
third world countries like Mexico, there are orphanages, and actually they're not supported by the government. And so some of them are, some of them aren't.
So I don't think this is
We
the
hadn't
time when
come, we hadn't gone down there yet.
I mean, we had gone to Mexico,
Okay,
just touristy stuff,
I see.
we hadn't done a family trip
Okay,
to the orphanage. Yeah.
gotcha. This time we were still doing the homeless stuff, which we continued on, but it was shortly after this we did the widow stuff, actually, because we were in that apartment when we started that.
Well, so there's some things that happened ahead of time, right? So we were building business, we were consulting with a couple of companies, and we had done some network marketing. We were also building Peculiar
Yep,
as a consulting business, and then we started doing some merchant service.
that's right. Yep, and that's a good story because it's a God story, another God story. Since we've been talking about the spiritual journey, let's tell that because that's a good one. We had
Because that's what
actually.
led to the
Right. Yep. To the widows. That's right. Good point. All right. So we had this partnership where we
Our
were
time in Signal Hill was really profound, y'all.
doing merchant services. I had been approached by a gentleman to do a business with him to help promote and help develop a merchant service business. Ended up being a multi-billion-dollar business. And so we turned our office that was about a block away from our apartment and into even a satellite office for this merchant service company. And so we did, man. We went all out. We were hustling, doing webinars and promoting working on the corporate side of this company as well, and helping to develop a lot of their sales stuff and
Mhm.
yeah. Anyways, strategies and things. And so we really helped to develop it really fast and quickly. I mean,
Yeah.
thousands of new merchants came on board every month. It was crazy how fast this company grew.
And the gentleman who we partnered with, became like family.
Yeah,
He really did. Our kids called him uncle.
yeah,
We were working really closely together. He had a bit of an accent, so Carlos was, sort of the face and the voice, and it was an interesting season for
it
sure.
was. Matter of fact, we became so close. He's like a brother, and even got baptized in the ocean. I got the privilege of baptizing him. And it was quite an awesome journey. We had our consulting firm, and then again we started working with that specifically with merchant service company, and then a big betrayal. Unfortunately, those things happen when you have partnerships. Sometimes things happen, and definitely love and appreciate Elias, who was the partner, and I do believe that he was led astray in a lot of ways. But the bottom line was, is with him, we had a company car together, a Mercedes. We had the office together again with Elias, and we were developing this merchant service company and consulting with them together as a partnership, and then all of a sudden it was gone. That's a nice way to say it. It was gone. The car was gone. The office was gone. The bank account was gone almost overnight. And
Yeah,
it
we
was,
we literally lost everything
yeah,
overnight, and it was a tough blow
yeah.
for
That's
for
interesting enough. Money is a strange thing because in that time we were transitioning and developing that company. We were actually working on some multi-million dollar, even billion-dollar deals with some casinos for merchant services. It was just pretty awesome. Like, and it's funny how money does things because some people had convinced him to oust us and for him to just do it because these big contracts were about to clear. And so we were ousted a little bit. And it was crazy because I really, really, really struggled with depression at that time.
he was
And
like curled up in the fetal position.
yeah, it was really hard for me because this guy was like a brother, and I felt a huge amount of betrayal out of the blue. And it was interesting because I remember during that time thinking, man, I get just a little taste of what Jesus went through when he was betrayed by one of his disciples and closest, one of those closest to him.
Well,
Like I
yeah,
said,
yeah,
not as much as he did, but if I could feel it, I could feel that grief and that pain that it must have caused.
and it wasn't just Elias, right? I mean,
Yeah,
because of how he did it, it had, you know, a lot of friends that we had involved in the merchant service questioning, like, what is going on?
right.
Are Who's telling the truth? What
Yeah.
is that? So, you're kind of in a position where you're like, wow, not only is everything that I've worked for gone, but now my character is being attacked. You know what I mean? Like it was a big deal. I think what was really profound is we actually had two friends during that time that were a part of what we were doing that actually like saw through the bullshit, right? Saw what was actually happening and stood by our side. Two out of so many. So that's a hard pill to swallow, right? Like it was not only this huge blow, but then that on top of it, it was a rough time.
Yeah, it was. So, couple of cool things that happened during that time that came into our life. First of all, Chantel was super wise. She's so incredible of just understanding the mind, and she knew I needed a project because I was just spiraling downhill very quickly, depressed, betrayed. Um, Again, as a man too, all of a sudden we have no money, like zero. We're starting from ground zero, and rent still due. We're getting kicked out of the
I think
office.
we had just gotten a tax return,
Yeah,
which saved us.
yeah,
And I did 2 trips to the grocery store on foot with backpacks with the kids
yeah. I remember
up
that
the hill,
you did.
up Signal Hill.
Yep. because we were still in that apartment.
Yeah.
And so anyways, she brings, as we're like cleaning out the office because we had to get
We were
out,
selling all the furniture
Yeah.
from the office.
making some money off that. All of a sudden, this guy comes in with these puppies, and they were so precious, little pit bull puppies. And immediately I went straight to the runt, the smallest one, because I was like feeling it.
Kona girl. No. So,
Passed away about 7 months ago.
so Kona was the comforter.
Yep.
She was our comforter. She
Yep.
was
I
not just a
remember
project. She was
taking her jogging, even as a little puppy. Started trying to get healthy during that time and exercise, and also just training her and working with her. So it was really a profound time.
Mhm. So then, the funniest thing is that same little church, the Light.
The Light with David
We-
Hino, the pastor.
Yeah. So we go to church and, we're surrounded by support there. They were super loving and supportive, telling them what's going on, right?
And God had really been working on me to serve the widows. And I hadn't quite figured out how or what to do to get that going. But we went to church like literally probably the week of all this happening, or maybe it was, I think it was a week after or so. But and there was a widow there, Ruth.
Yeah. So we shared our story, and then Ruth shared hers. She said, well, I want to give a praise report. My main water line broke, and I was blessed with $1,000 to go towards it. But everybody I'm calling said it was like, what, 3,000?
3,000 to 5,000 to
Yeah.
repair. And she's like, all I have is 1,000.
And so Carlos just went up to her and said, hey, Ruthie, I have these skills. He had construction skills and background. And
Yeah.
he said, you're going to have to come pick me up, because we didn't have the car at the time. But I have
Mateo and I, my son and I, and then another friend from church.
Yeah.
We all went over and said, let's do this. So we, and she borrowed a truck from one of her friends to go get the tools and equipment we needed to be able to repair her water main line. And we did. And it was crazy because we got the equipment, and then we found out as we were fixing the main line that her next door neighbor, had the same problem. And like we were talking to him, and she's like, you know what? I got quotes and it's 3,000 to 5,000. We're like, we're here. Why don't we go ahead and repair it for you? And I was like, she's giving us 1,000. You give us 1,000. That's great. We're here donating time for her. So might as well. And so, 1,000 covered materials and equipment. And then we had $1,000. Like, what the heck? We worked that week and got it done and had this $1,000. And in that time, I was like, okay, we're serving a widow. We've donated some time to her. And I said, well, Ruth, do you know any other widows? And it turned out she actually knew like 3 other widows.
It's like on the same block.
Yeah. On the same block, 3 or 4 other widows. And so we did. We made the decision, okay, we're just going to donate time to the widows.
But then Carlos had also, because she had borrowed that truck, Carlos also had asked the guy, because he wasn't using the truck. He said, hey, I was wondering if, this was kind of the situation that my family and I are in. And I was wondering if you would be willing to sell your truck to me.
Yeah, I had that $1,000. I thought, well, this is get us started with a vehicle. And I remember too, it was our anniversary.
Yeah.
It was our anniversary. And I don't remember which one it was, though. 2 or 3, maybe. Number 2.
Don't do
I don't remember. Can't remember. But the point is it was our anniversary, And I remember I wanted to take her on a date. We had this $1,000. I was like, man, we can go on a date and split a meal. And then I told him this. He says, well, let me talk to my wife about the truck. And I said, I've got this $1,000, but can I make a payment on it and have some for food and for our date? And so he's like, okay, let me talk to my wife. And then I said, and also, this Friday is our anniversary. By chance, can you help me out with a decision by this Friday? And so he brought it, sure enough, on that Friday, which was our anniversary. And he dropped it. He's put it there, and then he says,
Well, Carlos comes home that day and he is bawling. And I'm like, oh God, what now? Right? With everything that had just happened, I was like, what now? So, but the gentleman said yes. And he said, I'll sell it to you for $20. So
yeah. So he gave us this truck, and it got the nickname Baby Jesus.
Well,
Hazel named it.
Hold on. So he brings the truck and then signs the title over to us and then leaves the $20 on the table. Yeah. Carlos goes out to take him back to his home in the truck.
Now, this is where it's cool backstory. We have created all kinds of cool routines over the years, and there's some that are for a season. And for a couple months, we were doing the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the glory forever and ever. Amen. And so, interesting enough, we had been saying that morning and night as a family. And that was some revelation and some powerful things we had done. We still do it once in a while. We'll say that prayer.
But that was just it. Like when we were selling our furniture from the office, there was a moment where, we absolutely could have sued. Like we could have sued. I had a case. We were talking to an attorney.
Yeah.
And
I just taken on contingency.
We just felt super strong that like our energy was better served creating a business, creating something new. Okay. Yes. And because we had been reading that prayer, I also felt very strongly, and it was kind of what sustained me through that time was, this is a blessing. Like this is preventing us, like deliver us from evil.
That's right. That was fulfillment.
I kept hearing this is delivering us from evil. Whatever was happening on that side was evil, and this is our protection.
Yep.
So as shitty as this feels, as like this is your protection, and I felt that like in the core of me, like I knew 100%, and I really believe that
you were right. Actually, she was right, because that company that we were doing the merchant service development for actually completely imploded and folded as a company within a few months after doing that to us and with our previous partner. Yeah. So it's really interesting to see how, you reap what you sow, and we got out of there, and it's crazy.
So anyways, there's that feeling, right? So here we are, he's going out to take this gentleman home in the truck, and he gets in, and there's a bookmark with the Lord's Prayer sticking up.
And I was like, what the heck? Wait, where'd you get this? And I remember bringing Hazel and Mateo out specifically to show them. I'm like, look at this. We've been doing this prayer morning and night, and look at this prayer is hanging in this truck. I'm like, how did you know? And he goes, I didn't know. He goes, I don't know where it came from.
I was cleaning out the glove box.
And it was in the back of the glove box of this truck. And so Hazel is super cute, because she ended up, the window got broken or something, and we put a cardboard box in the back window, and she put it on it. She drew a picture
of eyes.
Jesus is watching you. She was little, and I remember because we then named it Baby Jesus. And that truck last year, it was still going in Mexico. We ended up giving that truck
to our orphanage.
Orphanage in Mexico, and it was still going. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so that truck was the first blessing.
Yeah.
Then we go to
So-
church Sunday.
So then we go to church Sunday. So we went on our date for our anniversary.
Oh, that's right. Yep. Yep.
Right?
That was
We're
awesome.
driving. This truck
Miracle.
we had a little extra cab. So actually the kids would fit in it too. So it wasn't just a 2-seater. And so that was awesome. But we went on our date. We did share a meal. And then we went into a shop and he bought me a hat. I still have the
Yeah.
hat.
Yeah. It's a really special hat because of that time and everything.
So anyways, we go to church on Sunday and, you know, we're like just ecstatic, right? Like such a blessing. We feel the blessing. We feel the protection. We feel all of
It's
this.
like praise report. God
Yes.
did this. Oh my goodness. We were blessed given a truck.
So we shared, you know, about the truck, and then we had this little table at the back where we had snacks and coffee, and so I go back to the table to get some coffee, and one of the gals in the worship team says, "I love that. That's so amazing." And then she like looked at me with a sly eye and she was like, "But what's mama driving?" And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm just so glad we all fit in this truck, right?" I was like, I worry about that later." And she goes, "I have this little car that I just put new tires on, runs great. I'm gonna give it to you." So within 1 week period, we were blessed with a truck and a vehicle with 0 car payment, excellent running.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It was a little white sunfire.
Yeah. Sure was.
And man, what the heck, right? If that's not protection, I don't know what is.
Yeah, it was super cool to go through that whole experience. And then we went and served the widows and had a green truck now and tools.
Yeah, so the
and
next widow that Carlos went to do some work with lived like 3 houses down from Ruth. And
this widow, she didn't need us necessarily to donate time, but it was crazy because it actually built trust.
yeah.
And we donated anyways. And we did a bunch of work for her and served her. And it was interesting because she ended up being like a multi-millionaire, older lady,
Yeah, she had
widow.
some real estate.
Yeah, and she said to me, she goes, "I need you to go in the garage and clean it out. I've asked my kids to do it several times. My husband's got some old stuff in there and tools. She was widowed, so it was her deceased husband. And so I'm like, okay. And so I opened up the garage and it was loaded with tools and loaded with stuff. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And it was crazy because actually it was a lot of stuff remember we were doing GWs and we were saying what we wanted and grateful for and what we were
What
worthy
you're
of.
worthy of.
And it was amazing because there was so many items in there specifically that we had been asking for,
Yeah.
down to weights that I was thinking of getting for workouts, an exercise bike,
Mhm.
a scooter for Hazel,
A kennel for Kona.
a Kona. Yeah, that's right. A kennel for Kona.
Yeah.
Nobody is left out in our family. All the things we got out of that garage.
Weights. Yeah, you said
Yeah,
weights.
plus tools to start a construction handyman business.
And she said, "You're my handyman now."
That's right.
They're
She
your
goes,
toilet.
matter of
tools."
fact, this widow said to me, actually, she goes, "You know what?" She was a very brilliant woman. She goes, "You're the widow's handyman." And I was like, "I am?" Okay. And I was like, "That's a brilliant name." And so we literally ran with it. It ended up being one of our ways of doing philanthropic work and giving back to the community. And man, it just blossomed
also
from there.
was our source of income,
That's
right?
right.
So remember when I said that, you know, we felt like there was this protection over us. You know, we had been doing personal growth and development. We had been learning, you know, business skills and strategies. We had
Been
been
doing
attending the
consulting.
events. We had been doing consulting. So we had grown dramatic. Like we had this skill set in our toolbox.
Yeah.
And, you know, that widow's handyman was just really us putting on our toolbox and using them, like
That's right.
essentially from ground zero, like literally from ground zero. So
knocking
we
on
actually-
doors,
yeah,
passing out cards, getting on apps and doing, getting leads and things from 0 to 6 figures.
in 5 months.
That's right.
5 months.
as possible.
Wild.
Yeah. And so we were hustling, but I mean, it was awesome. We were serving widows, and we ended up making that a whole thing that we did, and we actually gathered others to do it with us. And every other Friday, even our own, we started hiring people on our own staff and our team. That was part of, hey, before we hire you, we want to know if you're willing to donate time to the widows, because every other Friday we donate a full day to we give them our hours, and it started to be a thing, and we started working with multiple widows, and it was phenomenal. We've got story after story about that, videos that we gathered. It was such a blessing to love on the widows and serve them and give to them. So then we went from we were in Signal Hill at that time. We went from Signal Hill to then Huntington Beach.
Yeah,
And
Mateo had started surfing.
that's right.
Mateo was surfing.
Yeah.
And so we were at that point, he was 8th grade.
Played some basketball.
He
Little
played,
bit.
He played basketball. He played
Yeah.
football.
Yeah.
And he was surfing, and he ended up doing like a charter school, a homeschool charter school, going into high school. And so we were doing dawn patrol surf sessions. Like we were up at 5 a.m. at the beach doing dawn patrol surfing, and we would all often end up in Huntington Beach because that's where the better waves are. Long Beach doesn't have great waves, so it became a desire of our heart to move to Huntington, and so we did.
Which, by the way, we never got that big house in Signal Hill. Interesting enough, during that time, that was early on in our lives and early on in our belief system even. I'll be honest, like when I look back at that, like I didn't have the faith or belief to get that house. It was a multi-million-dollar home, and we actually did have somewhat of an opportunity. I remember when I look back and go, wow, it's amazing how we ended up connecting with the owners and finding out more about that home, but we didn't go after it. And that's even through this whole season where this phrase has been come from I create. That's right. I create what I want. When you go after it, you can have, and that's even our story about getting the ranch later. But it was an amazing time of envisioning,
Right,
believing, hoping for something way bigger than we could comprehend.
well,
And it was an amazing part of our journey.
Yeah, that's what took us to Signal Hill.
Yep.
and on the pursuit of what we wanted to create. And ultimately we did decide in Signal Hill to focus on our business, on Peculiar, on our global vision of both the philanthropic side, the consulting side.
Yep.
And so that's where it started. That journey started. It's really profound.
That's right. And then we moved. And our decision to move to Huntington Beach. It always, when we make our decisions, they're always based on what someone in our family, and at that time it was Mateo. It was like, let's find a place in Huntington Beach. That way he can surf. He did. He ended up surfing, he'd surf 3 or 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
And he was super committed and out there all the time working. And we even hired a professional surfer for him at one point to train with him. And
yeah, so he was pursuing that, and he wanted to compete. And at this point he was close to 16, and we hired the pro, and he was like, well, he definitely has potential, but you either need to move to Hawaii or he needs to switch to a longboard, because he had grown like almost a foot in that year. And so his height just made a huge difference for what he could do with surfing. So that was kind of a hard pill to swallow. And it was like, okay, well, what do we, so what now? And it was crazy because did we talk about rugby? I think we did. We talked about rugby back in Oceanside, right? And so we started looking for a rugby club, and we found Back Bay Rugby, and it was in Costa Mesa, which is, the city next to Huntington Beach. And so then we took him out for practice, and I'll never forget, never will I forget this night. It was cold. I brought my beach chair and a blanket, and I sat on that rugby field, and I 100% knew this is where he needed to be. Seeing him play rugby again was like I just felt everything in my core. So that was
He was
really,
home.
yeah, he was home. I was home. It was really profound. It was like, wow.
We love the rugby community.
Yeah. It was amazing. And so, you know, he began to play for Back Bay Rugby, and continued until he, you know, was out of high school and moved into the pros.
Yeah.
So, and Back Bay also had a lot of the coaching staff that coached for ERA, which was Eagle Impact Rugby Academy, which was the national feeder team for the USA Eagle at a youth level. And so he was able to travel with them. He traveled to Ireland, France, Canada. Like he did a philanthropic tour to Colombia. I mean, rugby has taken him all over the world, and
us too.
Where we were plugged into was really profound. I mean, there's no doubt that God had us where we needed to be in that season, and yeah, that was pretty amazing.
And so during that time, even of living in Huntington Beach, this is also where then Brandy and Rogelio ended up getting married. And we were a part of that, seeing them come together. And it was really fascinating because they had continued their friendship just as friends. And then they decided to get married. They came and stayed with us for a season too while we were living in the Huntington Beach house.
We had a number of people live with us over the years in all of the different places.
And it was, I think it was shortly, not too much longer after that, we got a place in Costa Mesa, an apartment, and transitioning to then the big house in Costa Mesa that was about 2 miles from the Newport Beach Pier. And so that was a big, profound growth for us too in our business and our influence. And we had developed that 6-figure handyman business into a multi-million-dollar business where we were doing projects for Tesla. It was crazy, for celebrities, some really big companies and restaurants in Hollywood and Beverly Hills. I mean, we were getting to be a known company in that world of construction, handyman. We got our commercial and residential construction license while we were there in California. So a lot was going on and a lot was being developed during that time. And when we were in the big house, as we call it, in Costa Mesa, we started retreats. Yeah. We had a lot of people really pulling on us.
So we continued to go to events, First Steps and Creating a Dynasty with Danny Johnson. Yep. We were, you know, part of our volunteer team, you know, faithfully for years and years, and just definitely in the trenches. And so we would spend a lot of time with couples, families after, you know, after each session, you know, late into the evening. And so many times people would just be like, you guys need to have marriage retreats. And, you know, it was definitely like something that, because we had done so many, we could still continue to do, you know, calls, personal growth, like leading our team. Right. So we were always in that mode of teaching and training and growing and
leading our company and our staff.
And we definitely were developing what we were doing in home into something. We just didn't necessarily have an outlet for it at that point because we were doing the construction stuff.
And when we were doing the consulting, we had even developed it to the next level. We had done our shapers and things that we even to this day now had. So we had started putting some body to some of our training. Epic 30 was developed and creating that and doing that. And it was amazing because we had actually started doing that with our company and different companies and people we were working with too. So it was really cool because people are like, and that was what Rogelio and Brandy said, can we come live with you and learn what you're doing? And many people are like, we want to understand why it is that you guys have something different. How is it that you have such an incredible marriage? And we've watched you over the years. Because yeah, we were with Danny and Hans for First Steps to Success, DannyJohnson.com for what, 11 years, or was it 10 years? 11? About 11 years. Started there in
I'd say
2011, and then she retired in 2021 when COVID hit, or 2020. COVID hit in 2020.
I don't know what year it was.
Yeah, it was 2020 when COVID hit. Yeah, we're in 2024, 4 years later. So she had retired when COVID hit. Danny Johnson did. And all the way until she retired, we were very, very faithful for those 10 years and invested hundreds of thousands of dollars to develop ourselves in business. And like Chantel was saying, we had many people wanting us to do retreats, so we started doing them.
Yeah.
We were living in the big house, and
So our first retreat was in Newport Beach, California, and it was awesome. And then I don't even remember how much further.
either
later.
2016 or 17 when we had our first retreat. I think it was 2017, actually.
And then that summer, that was earlier in the year, and then in that summer we did, the next one was in Phoenix, Arizona,
Yeah.
and then we did Knoxville, Tennessee. And meanwhile, we had gone to an event, First Steps event in Atlanta, Georgia, and we had some friends in the area that we visited after the event, and we were driving down these roads one day, and I just felt it in my stomach, in my belly, in my spirit. Like I couldn't take my eyes off of the window. I was like, oh my goodness, I feel like we need to move here.
Right.
And we had come out to visit kind of the region. Carlos's family lives in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And so every time we were in Chattanooga, we were looking at land. Like we had a desire to buy land. I did, at least. And but I was always like drawn to Georgia. I couldn't figure out why I was so drawn to Georgia. And so this drive to our friend's house, it was undeniable. And so on the flight home, I drew out a property. I drew a picture, like we had talked about before, of a vision of what I wanted, and shared it with Carlos, and he was like, oh, okay, cool, but it doesn't have to be Georgia, right?
That's right.
I was like, well, I guess not, but I feel this, so I'm just gonna lay it down and let it become his idea.
That's right.
So literally 2 years later, we were doing another retreat. We were doing sort of a legacy retreat back in California in Anaheim, and it became his idea. He was like, I got it. It is Georgia. I was like, glad you caught up. And so that's when
I'm trying to find the drawing because I have it somewhere, and
what are
it's
you
so
doing on your
profound.
phone?
I know, I'm trying to find this drawing because it is super cool. And if I can find it, it's like it'll have a timestamp on it too, because Chantel drew it on a napkin.
I didn't. I drew it in my notebook.
Oh yeah, that's right. Your journal or your notebook. That's right. On both, and it was like both pages.
Yeah.
That's right. And I took a picture of it. I scanned it, but I'm trying to figure out where the heck that is because it was really cool to have that. And
So
I'll have to tell
anyways,
you guys.
he caught up, and we kind of were just at a place where we were like, we knew that our lease at the house in Costa Mesa was going to be up in January. So we decided to move to Georgia. And Carlos had mentioned that we had done some Tesla projects. So we had a fifth wheel toy hauler trailer. We had some garage sales, and we just said anything that fits fits in the trailer is what we'll bring to Georgia. We didn't have a home. We were going to stay with some friends until we found a home. it was totally like just a like faith move for sure. Uh, the garage sales, I had signs that would lead people to our house that said, making dreams come true. And, they would come just to find out what kind of dreams were making come true. So that was really cool.
Yeah, it was an amazing journey. And, I got some things that we had drawn, retreat centers and stuff, but I don't even know this one, but that's a different one. Did you draw that one or was that Hazel?
That's Hazel.
Hazel had drawn this of the ranch, just to kind of give you guys an idea. So pictures are awesome. Scanning pictures are always good. But that was part of, I'll someday I'll show you the other picture. It's phenomenal that Chantel had drawn of the ranch before we ever came here. And so we made the journey in 2020.
Yeah.
And everyone, it was pretty cool because we were doing a yard sale, selling everything in the home. And she had put up that sign. It was really fun to have people come by and be like, well, what do you mean you're making dreams come true? And I remember she did like 2 weekends in a row and people would keep coming back just to talk to her and connect with her as she was doing this yard sale. And it was an amazing trip just to put everything that we could fit in there and then to go.
Mm-hmm.
And people were like, you don't have land yet? You haven't bought a house yet? And you're just going to Georgia. We're like, yep, we know we're supposed to go there. And we got here and we ended up staying with Kim and Larry.
Mm-hmm.
And Kim literally just got her real estate
She's a
license.
retired teacher
Yeah.
and had just gotten her real estate license. So we were her first clients.
Yep. And so
I had looked at a number of different properties from California. And then when we got here, we started looking. And it's funny because this home with the ranch,
mhm,
I had seen
Yeah.
when we were looking on California, and it didn't appeal to me at all. But it was, I would say one of the top 10 that of the first 10 that she showed us.
yeah.
And
I'll never forget walking through this house. It was like I was a little overwhelmed when we were walking through, Chantel was just like, I have it on video even. It's interesting that I videoed like the different houses we were looking at. And this one definitely stood out. It was very special. Part of it was because, first of all, she said, this is the one. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then the other part is.
Be honest, he said, oh shit.
Yeah, I was like, oh shit. I don't know how we're going to do it. And it was interesting because I also had a childhood dream of someday having a home or something where I had a creek. I always loved creeks, running water. When I was younger, we used to go up on the mountain. I told that in my story. And every time I'd go sit by the creek in the mountain where the water is coming down the mountain. And I just loved it. And so that was like, I remember doing a video too on my phone of the creek here and going like, oh my gosh, on the video. I was like, I've always wanted this. Since I was a little kid, I always wanted that. So it was pretty amazing to be on this ranch, but then it's like, this is 47 acres and how much does it cost? I was like, wait a second.
But
we've never even owned a home together.
It looked like my drawing, right? Like from
Yep.
the street, the road winds. There's a creek that runs the full length of the property. It has a little pond on it.
Yep.
Rolling hills, pastures. The house is tucked in the back, the very back part of the property. I mean, it was amazing.
Yeah, all the details were right on.
Yeah.
And then we looked at a few more houses because I still was not believing. And it was a process. Everything is. That's what you need to know too. And that's what we've learned over the years. If you want it, you got to go after it. And so we did work on it. And
yeah,
I remember we went back to California for mom's surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And to stay with them for a couple weeks, I think it was.
But we were in a position because of all the war on debt years. We had spent the last 10 years just literally paying cash for everything. We didn't play the credit game at all. And so we had no credit. Like it wasn't, we just didn't do it. We didn't participate in it. Well, you need credit to buy a home. And so that was a little bit of a journey that we had to go on in order to be creative with our financing, be creative with how we were going to do it. And I think what's really profound about that is this statement right here is I create what I want. You
That's
know,
right.
so when we talk about the home in Signal Hill and what that represented for us and our belief, right? There's levels in your journey, there's levels in, your growth, maturity, identity, exercising muscles of courage and, really doing the work that gains confidence, um, that allows you to even be in a position when you on paper are not qualified to go after something. And so that's what we did. And I watched this man just spend hours and hours and hours of pursuing options. And it was just wild how God showed up.
Yeah.
God showed up in the final hour before we would have lost it. And it was just really incredible. And it's a true testament to, the journey as a whole, right? The journey of like really going after what you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
Thank you,
It is.
Kevin.
Thank you. It was a team for sure. Along the journey, just even as when we left California and came to Georgia, COVID hit full on.
Yeah.
Like some people actually thought, did you guys know something? Because you got out of
Oh
California.
yeah, we had financial advisors who were like, "Y'all are crazy.
Yeah.
What are you doing right now?" We were
Right.
like, "We know that this is meant to be."
Yeah.
And it is wild.
And so our business that we had created, remember the multi-million-dollar construction company and working with Tesla and doing all kinds of projects in California, literally completely 100% shut down. So when we were coming to Georgia, we had that going and we are like, okay, there's where we're gonna have cash flow.
And we were going to do retreats.
That's right.
We were going to find a property that we could do retreats on.
Yep. And still have that business going. Well,
Yeah.
it completely shut down. My chief of operations, Wendy Little, amazing woman, was running the company, and her mom was older and had oxygen challenges and things, was on oxygen. And she's like, I cannot run this business or have anything to do with it. My mom's at high risk because of COVID.
Well, California was really bad.
Yeah, and just everything got shut down. So that business completely shut down. And so we were here in Georgia and we're like,
What do we
I
do?
guess we're gonna just pivot,
Mhm.
as the famous words during COVID. And we were doing retreats, but now we're like, we'll start with doing some kind of
Virtual.
online
We did
virtual
virtual
retreats.
retreats.
Yeah. And then it transitioned then into creating content, where Connection DNA came in, and we launched that, and it was crazy because then we had to now again we're like, okay, we're gonna start fresh with something, but we had been doing the retreat, so we had the content, so now we just put it into digital form and put it online.
So Peculiar Solutions became Peculiar Sanctuary, and that was our home department, our how we taught people how to connect in their home and with all of the different content we created.
Yeah. And so even the journey of coming here and then even transitioning from Peculiar Sanctuary then over to Epicure Life. And it had to do with the fact that we are constantly learning and growing. We constantly have mentors. Super grateful for what Danny and Hans did to help us. Danny retired, came here to Georgia, and then had the opportunity of being mentored by a very powerful and successful man, Abraham Gray. He is a 100-millionaire and one of the largest real estate investors here in Georgia, and also business investors. He owns multiple companies. So brilliant man. And it was fascinating because our story about this is very interesting. Chantel and I had gone down. We were starting to create some content as well and being mentored by Abraham. kind of skipping ahead because we've got to tell a story about how we got the ranch, but that's where we met Abraham actually, because he partnered with us on getting the ranch.
Mhm.
And I want to tell that story real quick because it is profound how, like Chantel was saying about how important hard work is and willing to put in the work to get the results. You know, I create what I want is true. You've got to work. And it was interesting because we had did a lease to purchase deal for the ranch to begin with. And then we had a year to get credit and things to get a loan through the bank. We had been approved for the loan in that year to get a loan from the bank for the property. However, we didn't get what's called a jumbo loan. So now we're faced with, we needed an extra $250,000. And we had no appraisal to prove that the property in the house was actually worth more than what
Because
we needed.
COVID
Yep.
everything was delayed.
So here we were. We actually had mom and dad living here with us too. And you talk about coming to crunch time. We had like 30 days to figure out how the heck we're going to come up with $250,000 in less than 30 days. We have no appraisal to prove it. But I just knew there's got to be a resource out there. There's got to be a way. And so I want to say this message to anybody watching. When you think that you've hit a wall and you think, well, maybe it's not God's will. If it's a desire you have and your heart lines up with God's heart, I promise you it is his will. He wants you to succeed. But sometimes we have to see past the challenge that we're facing and know that a challenge is just designed to help us be creative and help us to rise up as people. And there is a way. And it was interesting because I have learned through many years of doing business, many years of creative deals, that you just got to get on the phone. It's a numbers game. And I literally just started calling everybody I knew in my phone, every person that I knew from past, previous relationships, connections. And my call was like this, who do you know that can do a loan? Who do you know who can help us? We've got the property, we've got the equity. I don't have the appraisal yet. I'll have it soon. And I know that this house and this property is worth way more than what we're paying for it. So there's going to be plenty of equity. And it was interesting because every call they'd be like, okay, well, we'll check with some of our resources. And I just kept calling like hours and hours and hours and hours. I probably, and I'm not joking about this, I probably made close to 1,000 calls.
Yeah.
I'm serious. Like it was just all out. I mean, I have thousands of people on my phone anyways, but I just started calling and calling and calling and saying the same thing. I got to understand what a good script was quickly and get through the muck and mire, because some of them were like, well, yeah, we can do it, and it's going to take 30 days to get approval, and we need to get this and that, and through the loans and this. I'm like, nope, that's not going to work. We have like 2 weeks now. We had gotten down to 2 weeks, and I think we'd finally gotten down to about 10 days. And matter of fact, they had extended it because of the appraisal being delayed. We had the real estate deal, and they extended it, but they said, if you don't come up with the funds to buy the home by this date, you have to vacate the property. You have to get the heck out. And I'm like, I mean, at that time, I literally was like, this really looks impossible. Like, I can't see how this could happen. But I'm like, but I'm going to keep making calls. Someone has to have an answer. And I will tell you, when you think, don't judge, call everyone. When you're in a situation, call everyone and ask everyone, because everyone in your phone, in your list of friends, your database, knows approximately 2,000 people on average. And this is what was so fascinating. I had built a relationship, somebody we met here that was doing our training for our Krav Maga. We met him in a parking lot of a grocery store because we were doing Krav, and he had a Krav shirt on. And matter of fact, he ended up being a trainer for our retreats. Amazing man, Jonathan. And so Jonathan was one of my calls. It was a new contact, but I'm like, hey, who do you know? And I told him the situation, and he goes, you know what? I know this guy. He does tons of real estate in Georgia, and man, he's legit. He's real. He could do this. He donates to different things I've done with Krav and donates to the youth. And he's like, he's a good man. I'm like, are you sure about this? He's like, yeah. And so I'm like, all right. I call this guy. And I remember because I was just making call after call. And I remember talking to Abraham and I was telling him what we had and what we were going to do. And all of a sudden he goes, okay, yeah, I'll do it. I was like, huh? He's like, yeah, I'll do it. It's a good deal. I like your property. I like the equity. I'll do it. Tell me what your attorney's information is. And I'm like, it was like days before we had to close.
We did have the
We finally had the appraisal.
appraisal.
That's what it was. When we got the appraisal, we had 10 days.
Mhm.
10 days till we had to be out of the house, have the money or be out of the house. And I was like, I don't know how this can happen in 10 days. So who would be able to do this? And so I talked to Abraham. And I remember hanging up and Chantel walks into the room and I was like, I was literally in shock. And I was just like lost for words. I was like, I think we just got it done. I think, and it was interesting because I remember continuing to call more people. And I called Jonathan back. I was like, Jonathan, who is this guy? And he just said yes, but is he for real? And Jonathan's, yes, he's for real. I know this guy. And he goes, matter of fact, this is what was crazy. He goes, matter of fact, he has an event coming up. This was like a Wednesday or Tuesday.
Yeah.
He has an event this week. I'm like, are you kidding me? He's like, yeah, here's his Facebook page. And there it was, Abraham Gray. And I saw he was having what's called the Gray Method. It was his first time he ever done an event. And I call him back. I'm like, Abraham, hey, I see you're having an event this weekend. Like, can I come to it? If you're a guy that can do this, I want to come learn from you. He's like, yeah, I'll hook you up. Come on. And so I went, and I'm telling you guys, it was amazing. You need to go look Abraham Gray up on YouTube if you haven't. He's got a YouTube channel. This guy had story after story, become a millionaire at like age 15 or 16, trading cars and Beanie Babies, and just a story of becoming 100 millionaire.
We buy gold.
Oh my goodness. Amazing, man.
Mhm.
And so, because part of me was like freaking out a little bit, like, what if this guy doesn't come through for me? Because he just said, yes,
Right.
I can do it. And I'm like, there's $250,000. Like, is this,
Too good to be true.
I was like, is this possible? This guy's just going to wire the money from one phone call? I'm like, how's that possible? But sure enough, after I attended, I sat on the front row, y'all. I was like, I want to figure out who this guy is. And he was real. He was legit completely. It went through. We became partners on the property deal and we built the friendship. I've learned so much from him.
Mhm.
And that's what I wanted to bring up, was how you continue to learn, you continue to grow, and you're always going to hit a ceiling from who you're learning from. And man, he just lifted that lid off my ceiling. He's taught me so much about partnering with the bank and leverage things and grow your wealth and your portfolio. And it has been an incredible journey of us, and even the YouTube channel thing. He had started a YouTube channel. We had one, but we weren't developing it. And it was just super awesome to get to learn from such a powerful man and to see how that could come about. It was a miracle. It really was. And it got done. And now here we sit on our multi-million-dollar property that is literally almost 4 times worth what it was when we got it. And I'm super grateful that we did it and pulled the trigger. And
When we did it.
That's right. And it's continued. And when everyone said don't do it, we did it anyways,
Yeah.
and it paid off. And so it's been amazing, amazing journey.
Yeah. So we did it.
We did it. We're here.
And we started to hold, even through COVID,
Yep.
we were able to, we started to do retreats here on the property.
Yep.
We did some weddings over here. We since have built a guest house for mom and dad.
Yes.
Um,
3-bedroom, 2-bath, beautiful home for
Yeah.
mom and dad.
whew,
We
Rough couple
also,
years.
the other thing too, that started like 7 years ago. This will be our 8th year, is actually going to the orphanage in Mexico. We'll be going there this Christmas again. We started making it a habit a tradition to where every Christmas we go spend it with the orphans in Mexico. And we've helped build things for them, bless them financially, bless them with gifts over the years, supported Lupe and Choita with they're the couple that
Founded it.
founded the
Casa
orphanage.
de Hogar.
Yep. And so that's been a beautiful tradition we've done for many, many years. And we'll continue to do that. We'll be going this year. And so quite a journey.
Yeah.
And then Epic Your Life. Oh, that's why I talked about Abraham Gray. Because when we were going down to he lives in Atlanta, and going down there, being mentored and working with him on different projects. One of the times we were talking about, YouTube channel and things, and he goes like, "Now, what's the name of your company?" And I was like, He's like, "What?" He's very, very blunt and straightforward. He's like, "I will not work with you with such an effing stupid name like that." He's like, "No." And I'm like, Chantel and I looked at each other like, "Oh crap." Like, okay. He's like, "I don't know how to spell it. I can't even say it." He's like, "That is the stupid longest name I've ever heard of in my life." And we're going like, cricket, crap. We're a little offended, but now super grateful, right? Because Epic Your Life was birthed through that process of learning from him. And so, yeah, we knew we wanted to create epic
We preach
marriages,
growth,
and that's right.
right? We preach growth, even doing hard things. So, just because we're attached to something doesn't mean it's the best thing for, getting who we are out. So here we are.
And through this process, working with Jesse and Irina Kaufman, and now they are heading up a branch on single to married, and we work on Epic Your Life, which includes marriage mastery and retreats. Still got retreats.
We just came back from Montana.
That's right. We do mentorship at a whole nother level now, with helping develop legacies and companies and businesses with business consulting too, as well, and family consulting. And then we have support from some of our incredible leaders, and we help support them. And so it's a pretty awesome journey together.
I'm sure we've left a ton out.
Yeah.
But it's a lot to condense into just, we'll probably add a couple hours now.
Yeah. But it's our story, right? It's our story. And we hope you've enjoyed kind of our story as we've told it coming together. And then
so the current state of our children: Hazel's 16, Mateo's 24. Mateo plays for Anthem Rugby Carolina in Charlotte, North Carolina. Brand new MLR Major League Rugby team there. Hazel is 16.
He scored the very first try for the
last year
on their very first game.
The inaugural game.
That's right.
He scored the first try.
That's our boy. Ooh, Mateo.
And Hazel is she's in her junior year in high school and getting ready for her 4th club season playing volleyball. So
she's aspiring to play some college volleyball, and she's working 2 jobs, doing good on her grades. It's amazing to see the journey we've had, and the journey together, and our children doing amazing. I'm blessed to be married to you, love. We got a new puppy too. We got a new dog, Nova. Been working with her and training her. So the story goes on. So now we'll just keep telling the story as it goes. Yeah. Follow us. Like us, follow us, subscribe.
Thanks for watching.
Yep.
Hope it's interesting. If you want to just, get to know us, there's lots of information. Lots of timeline progression. So anyways, bless you. Have a great night, day, whenever you're watching.
That's right. This is our story. Stay tuned. There's more to come. The best is yet to come.
Make marriage great again.
That's right. That's right. Making marriage great again, baby. Let's do this.